The door wasn't forced. It wasn't broken. It was just open. A thin crack in the early morning stillness, like something had slipped through without a sound. By the time the 911 call came in, panic had already taken root. 8-year-old Amari was gone. She wasn't the kind of child who disappeared. Not quietly, not in the night. She was bright, observant, the kind of girl who noticed everything. The sound of a latch clicking, the shift in someone's tone, the smallest change in a room. She loved the kitchen, loved playing dress-up, loved being close to her younger siblings. Her world was small, contained, predictable. And now it had been shattered. Her mother said she had last seen her sometime between midnight and 1 a.m. The door had been locked, deadbolt. But when she woke up, it was slightly open. Amari was nowhere inside. She searched the building twice before calling for help. At first, it sounded like every parent's worst nightmare. A child wandering out. Possible abduction. A desperate race against time. The kind of story that spreads fast, gripping entire communities with fear. Within hours, Amari's face was everywhere. Her glasses, her rainbow light-up shoes, her blue pajama set. Officers flooded the extended stay hotel. They knocked on every door, searched every room, combed the surrounding woods. K-9 units traced scents that went nowhere. Helicopters scanned from above. But something was off. There were no signs of struggle. No witnesses. No footage of a child leaving. Nothing. The silence was too complete. Inside the hotel room, investigators began asking questions. Not just about Amari, but about the hours before she vanished. The timeline. The details. The small things people don't think about when they're lying. The answers didn't line up. Her mother's girlfriend, Celeste, claimed she hadn't been there. She said she'd spent the night with family and returned in the early morning, going straight to bed. She didn't check on the kids. She assumed everything was normal. But when pressed, her timeline shifted. The hours blurred. Her words tangled. Times didn't match. And when detectives checked, the alibi unraveled completely. She hadn't been with family at all. That was the first crack. Then came the cameras. Surveillance footage from around the hotel should have shown something, anything. A child stepping outside. A frantic mother searching. A stranger lurking. But it showed none of that. No Amari. No wandering footsteps. Not even the desperate search her mother described. It was as if the story they'd been told had never happened. The investigation pivoted. What began as a missing persons case quietly transformed into something darker. Something heavier. Detectives stopped asking where Amari went. They started asking what happened to her. Inside an interview room, the tone shifted. The questions sharpened. Did something happen that night? Was there an accident? Was someone afraid to tell the truth? The answers remained the same. Denials. Confusion. Frustration. But outside that room, evidence was stacking up. Cell phone data. Surveillance footage from nearby stores. Vehicle records. A timeline began to form. One that didn't include a missing child wandering into the night. Instead, it pointed to something deliberate. 2 days before the 911 call, Celeste had rented a U-Haul. She drove to a store, bought latex gloves, bleach, supplies no one buys without a reason. The truck was returned that same evening. Later, her phone pinged near a wooded area miles away from the hotel. 15 miles. That's where the search shifted. And that's where they found her. Buried beneath leaves and dirt, wrapped in trash bags tied with rope, was the small, fragile body of a child who had never left that room alive. The truth, once uncovered, was far worse than anyone had imagined. Amari hadn't disappeared in the early morning hours. She had been dead for days. The injuries told a story no one wanted to hear. Fractures to her head and ribs. Deep internal damage. Signs of prolonged abuse. Not a single moment of violence, but many. Repeated. Escalating. Unstoppable. Her body was severely underweight. Malnourished. Neglected long before the final blows. This wasn't sudden. It wasn't a tragic accident. It was a pattern. A system of cruelty that had gone unnoticed, hidden behind closed doors. And the people responsible were the ones who had called for help. When confronted, the stories changed. The mother broke first. She pointed at Celeste. Said she was the one who did it. Said she only helped cover it up. But the evidence didn't support innocence. Videos recovered from a phone painted a horrifying picture, one of shared violence, shared responsibility, shared silence. The abuse wasn't isolated. It wasn't hidden from everyone. Amari's younger sister, just 6 years old, carried pieces of the truth. She spoke of a bad kids' hospital, a place used as a threat, a place where children were sent if they didn't behave. But it wasn't real. It was something darker, a code, a fear tactic. Something that made sense only in a home where punishment blurred into violence. She spoke of what she saw, of her sister not waking up, of what happened after. And suddenly the gaps in the timeline disappeared. The door that had been left open was no longer a mystery. It was a lie. Everything about that morning, the panic, the search, the call, had been staged. A carefully constructed illusion meant to delay the truth. But the truth doesn't stay buried. Not in shallow graves. Not in inconsistent stories. Not when a child's voice, even trembling, still finds a way to speak. The arrests came quickly after that. Charges piled up. Cruelty, false reporting, concealment. And then, as the full scope became undeniable, murder. In court, the details grew even heavier. Harder to process. Harder to forget. Medical experts explained how every injury mattered. How there wasn't a single fatal moment, but many. Each one contributing. Each one inescapable. Every single blow was fatal, the prosecution said. It didn't matter who struck the last one. The outcome had been sealed long before. Testimonies revealed isolation. The children rarely seen outside. The world reduced to the walls of a hotel room. No school. No watchful eyes. No intervention. There had been prior concerns years before. Nothing substantiated, nothing pursued. Nothing that stopped what came next. The grandmother miles away had no idea. She remembered Amari as bright, kind, full of life. Not troubled. Not difficult. Not the child described in excuses and justifications. She had wanted them back. Tried to reach them. But contact faded. And by the time the truth surfaced, it was too late. The verdict, when it came, felt inevitable. Life without parole. Then more years added, decades stacked on top of forever. As if numbers could somehow measure what had been done. The mother would follow with her own sentence. Different charges. Same ending. Prison. No freedom. No escape. But justice, even when delivered, felt hollow. Because it didn't change the beginning. It didn't rewrite those final days. It didn't give back the laughter in a kitchen. The joy of dress-up games. The quiet affection of a child who loved her siblings. It didn't give Amari another morning. The hotel room is empty now. The door that once stood slightly open has long been closed. But the questions linger in the silence. How does something like this go unseen? How does a child disappear before anyone realizes she's already gone? And how many quiet cries behind closed doors never make it to a 911 call at all? Some stories end with answers. This one ends with a truth that's harder to sit with. That sometimes the danger isn't outside in the dark. Sometimes it's already inside the room.